I'm Stephanie, and this is our video assessment for the unit The Interconnected World. This assessment is to discuss what are the risks that can be involved in the mobile phone producing process, and how it can affect the residents of the countries that this product was produced. Our group is composed by 4 members, which is me, that I'm going to do the discussion, and the introduction and the conclusion, and going to discuss the most important topics. And also our next group member is Bodhi, who will discuss what are the materials that are required for making a phone, and how the lack of these products can affect us. The next one is Vinay, who will talk about the India and China trade, basically why this trade is important for healthy and poor countries, and how they can rely on the supplies. Lastly, Madeline, to discuss the risks involved in the residents of these countries and how it can affect their daily life. Now I will let you guys with Budi, who will discuss our first topic.
In this part, I'll cover the component used to make mobile phone, its major source country, and how lack of access to this material affect production and use personally. A lots of components are used to make a mobile phone, like antenna and TXRS switch is used to convert electronic magnetic signal to electronic signal and vice versa. And TX-RX switch is used to convert both TX path and RX path with antenna. Mobile phone basement part is used to convert to be carried where ADC and DAC analog to digital converter is used to convert analog speech signal to digital signal and vice versa. Mobile phone software protocol stack and operating system are important to run mobile smoothly and connect software to hardware. Both battery is the major source of power to keep the mobile functional, and connectivity is important to transfer data. Other components like microphone, speaker, camera, display are important to make mobile phone complete. One of the major source country of smartphone and its part is China, and it has the highest number of mobile users in the world. China represents a quarter of world export and had a huge impact on the world market. Lack of access to this material decreased the production rate and increased the demand. Shipment will be slow, due to which we have to face shortage of mobile phone in market. In March 2021, China Xiaomi mobile company released its largest flagship device in India at the price of $161, but at this moment the phone retails at $174, about 8% higher than the original price. Average wholesale price for phone worldwide went up by 5% in the April to June quarter 2021, according to the market researcher strategy analysis.
In this part of the presentation, we will discuss the question, why do smartphone companies prefer to manufacture overseas? Before we begin, did you know that in September this year alone, China produced more than 151 million cell phones? Some of the reasons why companies prefer to manufacture overseas are cheaper skilled labor. Foxconn, a Taiwanese company who is also the largest supplier for Apple, pay their assembly line workers $3.15 an hour in China, whereas for the same job in the United States it pays $13 to $20. Some of the other reasons are their capability to produce in high volume. Foxconn's plants in Zhengzhou, China have the capacity to produce 500,000 phones in a day. And to avoid tariffs. To meet the high demand of Samsung smartphones in India, Samsung decided to set up its manufacturing unit in India where it will manufacture and sell locally. This way they could avoid tariffs by the government and they could keep the prices competitive, which way they would earn more in profits. And lastly, due to grants and subsidies provided by the government. the Zhengzhou government built and partly financed the construction of the huge manufacturing complex, also known as the iPhone City, which cost them $600 million. The plant also receives subsidies on electricity. But how does it benefit the host country, you may ask? So, when a company sets up its manufacturing unit or a factory in a new country, it creates new job opportunities, which will lead to the increase in personal consumption as now more locals have money to spend. It will also boost local businesses. For example, to build the manufacturing unit or the factory, local contractors will be hired. And lastly, it increases the net export from the country as the company will ship out its product to various parts of the world. And all of these lead to the overall growth of the country's economy.
Thanks, Vinny. So now let's look at the risks associated with the production line of mobile phones by me, Madeline Ringland. We know that a phone's production line has three parts: design, manufacture, and assembly. As I will discuss, these three parts impact individuals worldwide at each step. So let's take Apple, for example. We all know that they boast designed in California, but where are they made? Where do their parts come from? According to Lifewire.com, just as I mentioned before, Apple's manufacturing line and assembly line are very separate. Apple's manufacturing line spans all over the world, having parts shipped from Germany, China, the list goes on, and you can see it here on the slide. Their assembly line, however, is a lot smaller, with the majority of the iPhones being assembled by two major Apple partners, Foxconn and Pegatron, and it comes to no shock that both Foxconn and Pegatron have their iPhones assembled in China. Breaking these three steps apart, we can assess the risks of this production line closer. At the first step of production, we would begin to see no new designs being created, which would lead to a decrease in demand, which would then lead to workers in that country losing their jobs and their families being impacted on by that loss of income. This would affect me on a personal level of having no new phone to upgrade to when and if the time came. At the second step of production, we would begin to see the impact of having no new designs to create also means that no new parts are required. And if demand has diminished, the need for production and therefore the need for parts for phones also diminishes. This leads to an impact of job loss on the residents of those countries and impacts the families with that loss of income, possibly even seeing the closure of warehouses and entire businesses. At a personal level, this would mean that there are no new parts to build or replace new or existing phones. At a third and final step of production, we would see that the decrease in production of parts halts assembly lines, meaning contracts cannot be filled. This decrease in assembly leads to an increase in price for the odd phone that is produced, meaning only people with lots of money can afford phones now, which means people with low socioeconomic status can no longer afford phones, leading to a struggle in maintaining contact with family members abroad and even maintaining work. This loss of work, not only within the assembly line but further abroad, has dire repercussions for individuals worldwide. And on a personal level, this would mean that I would no longer be able to afford to replace or fix my phone if I was ever required to.
To conclude all the main points of this presentation, as Budi was talking about, some essential components to make a mobile phone is the antenna, which can convert electronic magnetic signal to electric signal. Also, we can think about the batteries, which is one of the most important sources for power in the mobile phone, the camera, the microphone, and the speakers, and some others. And the most part of the source come from China, who is nowadays the biggest manufacturer. The lack of access to this material could highly affect the number of buyers, could highly affect the buyers and the factories. With a lack of this product, it means that the demand would be really high and the production would decrease, and the price would increase as well. And probably the number of people buying second-hand phones would increase. Now, as Vinay was discussing about the smartphone companies that prefer to have their own manufacturer overseas, we can highlight that the main topics for this region is, this is happening, is the cheapest labors, most faster production and more volume, and the easier avoid ferries in these countries. The countries benefit from this manufacturing because it creates more employment opportunity and opportunities, and also increase the purchasing powers of people in that country since they now have jobs. It also increased the marketing between local business, as these large companies need to contract with local business and need their service and products. And obviously, the amount of exports from the country also increased, which is good for the country economies. Now, the last point about this presentation discussed by Madeline was which are the risks involved in this mobile phone production. I think the firstly and most important thing that we can highlight in this topic is the manufacturing risks. That because now no new desires are created and the demand decreases, they don't need new designer to recreate it, as no new parts are required, which results in some business shutting down. The decrease in this production means that the price will increase and less people will have access to these products. This was the main points of our presentations. Thank you guys for listening.